o portfólio da Ericsson para passar muito.
Ericsson portfolio that we're going to look at briefly. We have 10,000 people working, and we have another 3,000 people working voluntarily in 25 countries in Latin America. It's 39 offices that are managed by us, by our facility management group, and total it's 81. They're legal entities and low-cost offices. They're small spaces, and they're equipped by Ericsson. We also have a factory. It's called San José dos Campos, and it's located in the state of São Paulo in Brazil also. Let's look at the numbers. Ericsson is a company that's old. It was funded in 1876. It's more than a century old. Here's some numbers about the distribution of the number of employees around the world. The results of the company last year were about $35 million, with an increase of 2.73%. What's real interesting is that it's a global phenomenon of diversity, and it's worrying because it's a technological company that distributes around 21% of women inside the company and about 79% men. I'd like to start with a provocation. A lot of you have already seen this. And talking a little bit about mobility and facility management. Which circle is larger? Obviously, it depends on the point of view of the client. Are you the client or are you the facility manager? Each one has their problem. They have their own point of view, and they look at it in a different way. What does mobility mean? When I talk to my client and I say, starting tomorrow, you have no office and you're going to sit in any space that's available, and you can't put the photos of your children on your desk, you won't have your chair anymore, you won't have your own workspace. Or I could say, we are building a different space that's more collaborative, it's more adequate to your needs, because we've verified that your workspace isn't, and your meeting spaces aren't being used in the adequate way to talk amongst yourselves, to collaborate, and constantly to produce more. I think it's very different. There's a lot of communication involved, how you explain the topic, how you use facility management to forward your business. And what we're going to talk about, we're not about changing light bulbs. We want to do a lot more. We're working with a company to bring anything that can be an improvement, not only to look for a new office space. It's not about air conditioning maintenance. We're a lot more than that. And people have to perceive us in a different way. I adore this picture. Have you seen it before? No? So you already know what's behind there. How many people have seen themselves in a situation like this? You're taking a picture of a place. You're explaining a problem to your client, and you're not seeing everything. When you see the whole picture, you might get frightened. The problem might be larger from what one thought. And so you have to be prepared for a new world. What you want to work, a new office. Who are the new ones? Who's the gorilla that's behind the people that we're going to work with? And we have to establish our new needs. I used to say to everyone I talk to, think out of the box. Think differently. I have a new project. I don't know how many workplaces I need per person, how many rooms. Why? Why do I need these rooms? I need my staff to be working next to me in the office. I can delegate. Sorry. I have a video that some of you might have seen. It's a video that talks about why, what, and how. Basically, the iPhone case. When I was describing the iPhone conceptually, talking, the battery doesn't last the whole day. And it's heavy. The connections don't work that well. It has apps, but I don't know what these apps actually do. Do you want to buy this cell phone? Then how can I sell this phone? Maybe it's not the product in itself. What's the difference? Why are you going to buy that product? What does it have behind it? Again, we have to sell the mobility concept. We have to sell a state. We have to position ourselves differently. When we go to corporate offices, companies want us to be creative, that we produce, that we bring a benefit to the company. We're there to produce, to bring money, and in conclusion, to present results. They tell you to be creative. Show me the money. I want results. And the poor man doesn't know how to produce. He doesn't have an adequate space. You already saw the offices, the reality. You already sat down, or you came to the people's place that have to work in those companies to see what's really failing. People are worried with air conditioning maintenance, or they're worried about the people that are at the workspace. They have to change and think in ample terms. Obviously, this concept is very important so that we're all prepared for what might come. I'll tell you a short story. I started working with this reality of shared environment and mobility when I started working in Cisco in 2007. When I started working, we were still with the concept of mobility. And when I started to work, what motivated the concept was, what do we need to reduce costs? Well, companies performing well, people have adequate offices, and when everything goes well for the company, no one thinks about reducing costs. That's the truth. We put Cokes in the fridge, everybody's happy, the money is over, I take away the Coke and I take away office space, and we save on paper. But it's not what we have to do. We have to provide an adequate space for those people who are working. The big idea was that we don't want a conventional office, because then the offices were very conventional. Everyone had their workspace. I don't know if there's a good translation for Spanish, but drawers. One less drawers. Facility. With drawers, there were people who would say, I have a brand of a drawer with wheels, and it would be put on a specific table according to our needs. And we would put the drawer here, and we'll leave it at the workspace according to our needs. It was an idea Let's go for mobility. Let's go to another reality. What happened was that everyone at some certain moment decided that they were tired of having to carry the drawer. They would just leave it in a corner and go to their workspaces. If I need something, I stand up and go to the drawer and go back to my space. They don't use too much paper. There's a propaganda leaflet of Ernst & Young. I just put it in the drawer and there it stays. I don't think this is an adequate environment for creativity. According to Albert Einstein, creativity is contagious, pass it on. We need freedom and promoting creativity. When I talk about visionary, and someone referencing who could be visionary, I always think, or I think everyone thinks about one person, which would be Steve Jobs. The definition of visionary, from my point of view, is Steve Jobs. It's a visionary leader. Who are the great leaders that made possible a different world? There were a few people. One would say Einstein, others would say Steve Jobs. And ask yourself, very quickly, could anybody say some words related to the concept of visionary, a synonym that we might compare it to? Visionary. What does it mean to you? Innovator? To think differently? Advanced? Reinvent? It's very similar, and we're going to explore it. Oh, I already changed to Spanish. So, synonyms. Very sympathetic. It's different, the meaning in Portuguese and Spanish. To me, it means inspired, ingenious, romantic, dreamy. It means we all have a little bit of each of these concepts and we can transform them. And the point is, we all burn money and waste it at our workspaces because of excessive costs. This study is based in a Latin American country, and there are some companies that have this mobility concept installed, and they have 40% of office space that's vacant. And I don't want to optimize it. I don't want to provide space. The time has passed where the employee has to do this and the other thing. And if you have to go out of the office at 5 past 8, maybe that person will not come back. They don't want to be commanded around, and you have to adapt to that reality. So I wanted to work at this office. My dream is to slide down that slide. I don't know how it's said in Spanish. This is a Lagoon office. I wanted it to be different. I wanted to have my coffee at that office. My vision. Be prepared. My vision is a little bit different from that of other people. Each time I talk about this concept of mobility and shared environment and paperless initiative, these are the companies that don't want to waste paper. They don't need paper. Control staff, finance staff, they want paper. They have obligations. They need paper. But the large majority doesn't use paper anymore. When someone comes to me, and I don't want anyone to feel offended by this, and gives me a business card, and I throw it away, but I'm going to feel bad if I throw it away because I don't use that paper. This happened when we were in the process of implementation of office mobility. When the president of the company in Brazil came and said, starting now, my company will be paperless. And there was a funny guy who said, I hope that doesn't extend to the bathrooms. And that's why I put this picture up here. Culture. To me, it's very clear that in the reality of mobility, what exists in the sidelines is a lot more important. The culture of the company versus the needs of cost reduction, space flexibilization. Nowadays, like we were saying before, a manager is nowadays where? United States. Your boss is in Buenos Aires, so you can talk to him one-on-one. He doesn't have a boss because he's a consultant and he's rich. I have 3 bosses. One's in Sweden, another one's in Quebec, in Canada, and another one is in Chile. And I'm in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. How can we work together? How do they know that I'm producing? Do I need, as a manager, to be present and seeing what you're doing? No, I need some tools. And there are more and more people with that characteristic. Going back to the culture, with the definition of culture and inside mobility, it would mean which would be the motivation of a company like Cisco, for example. I don't like talking too much about them because I'm not there anymore, but the concept of a company like Cisco is, in terms of adequating the space, it was due to the culture that the company had. We work differently. We don't need workspace. What can you do for us? And that's how the concept of mobility developed and was born. And going back to break the ice a little bit, we're talking a bit about culture, what it means. We can talk about countries, culture, what it means for us, and if it could be applied to our needs. Culture can be a band, culture club. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. I could give you a simple definition of culture. Culture is the way you think, act, and interact. We could define it in some other way. I prefer this way. Culture is the way you think, act, and interact. I don't know if this is the way we can interact. So we interact and we work together. I need to worry about where I work, how many hours I work, how, where, and when. I have the habit of saying that now Ericsson has this habit, and I was there precisely to help to resolve this. And we're at this moment we're having an exchange of ideas. The Cisco concept that was very developed, I worked in an office 20 minutes from my home, and I would go there a maximum of twice a week because I would have a video conference and we had telepresence equipment, so I had to be there. I didn't have that necessity of being at the office. So I would also like to go to the swim lessons of my daughter. And you would ask if someone was worried about that in Cisco. Nobody. If I had a conference call with my boss and he asked me where I was, I would say that I'm at my daughter's swimming lesson. And he would ask, what, you're telling me that your daughter doesn't know how to swim? So they weren't worried about this. They wanted to see results of a specific matter because it's important. They need to know the results. What's being produced. It doesn't matter where it's being done. It's necessary to change this form of thinking. Some statistics. This is data taken by Cisco and other technological companies that might be relevant. 66% of the employees think that flexibility is more important than salary. This is a new generation. I want to work from home. If I earn a little bit less, it doesn't matter. 38% have a different location than their manager. And there's a big volume of people who work in technology or other industries. They're not next to their boss. 47% of the time, you're collaborating with other cities or other countries. And I think that obviously that's going to change with the presence in other countries and with the type of companies. 43% thinks it's critical to be able to connect with any place at any time. We all believe that. I think it's not enough. It doesn't matter here in Spain. 89% work at home, and they have to work at home. They call from their phone to talk with their boss. I'm working. I can answer emails, talk from my phone. I prefer this reality. I don't have to do overtime at the office. It's life quality. 96% want to work at home. I really believe in a job that I did in our workplace group, property management, real estate, facility management. Those are the biggest motivators for change. Don't wait for the chair to take an initiative, for example, paperless initiative. They don't do this. You can propose, you can structure, you can develop the environment better. Here you have facility or facilities, we never know. The support of people, we need them. We're here for that. It's not just a building, it's for the people. I'll gloss over this briefly over structure, the sharing environment. I don't know if you have heard about VCM, which is basically vision, strategy, execution, and measurement. When people talk about a company strategy or a vision, a strategic vision for a company, there has to be an alignment between all groups. There's vision, build flexibility, strategy, understand current workplace, execution, business plan, change management, measure, space utilization. If we don't measure, someone said it before, if you don't measure, you don't know what you have between your hands. You need to know your offices. You need to know how they're being used. For example, I can't share information of a company with another. An example of would be a RITMAT. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. It's a graph where one verifies the peaks in the use of office space, and we can monitor this through an access control. You can talk with any company that has this access control, that it's a tool that we can center per group or according to the floor or areas. Where there is an access control, you can achieve this information. Does this bother you? No? If everyone worked this way, I wouldn't need to talk about this. Basically, this is the concept. Once I do this presentation, people say, I want to work like this. And I recommend that they work like this. Here in Brazil, we have beaches, and I know that here in Barcelona, you also have fantastic beaches. The reality is this. You can go on holiday, but you can be also working at the beach. So the challenges. Very briefly, we have local legislation. If you're in Latin America and the countries that we're present, we have to be very careful with local legislation. For example, minimal space per headcount, labor unions, where we have to always reach agreements with, or Brazilian laws are extremely conservative. I need to clarify that all Brazilian companies that decide to follow this mobility model, they have to assume the labor risks. They have labor processes because of the fact that they're not in accordance with the law, because labor unions tend to be extremely protectionist, and they haven't yet adapted to this reality, and they don't really support you in this sense. But according to my experience, the more you restrict it, the worse it becomes. So in a general context, if I give freedom, I again use Cisco as an example. For more than 10 years, this practice, there was never a labor process against Cisco because I was working at home. On the contrary, no one wanted to be there because no one wanted to work at their office and they were feeling okay. Workplace, I'm going to skim over it briefly because it's not the idea to talk about how it's structured. I'm sure that we are the catalyzers of synergy inside the company. If you were to ask for a meeting with IT, with security, with finance, with HR, with sales, with marketing, with systems, and all of these could come to the meeting, you could be a motivator for change inside the company. Don't wait for someone else to do it because that's not going to happen. So I'll go directly to how it's structured. Once again, my personal opinion, one can say how they're going to earn money by changing the culture. It's not reducing space. Again, there are many companies visiting my office and they would say, I want to learn what you're doing. What should I do to reduce costs, to have to diminish office space? So do we send people to work at home? No, absolutely nothing like that. My aim isn't to reduce costs, but companies do have the necessity for different obvious economic reasons to reduce costs, but it's not my ulterior motivation. And as a result, the part of green viewing or reducing transport, we're going to have very positive results with not too much investment. They're very conceptual investments. They're cultural of a company to diminish their environmental impact. And you can try that out and not only reduce the costs or the CO2 footprint. Thank you very much, everybody.